Will the LA Kings trade for Oilers defenseman Darnell Nurse? We have a special guest to talk about that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here. Let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, we have a great interview with the host of Locked On Edmonton Oilers. He's Nick Zararis. He's going to talk about Darnell Nurse coming to LA, Connor McDavid coming to LA, and former Oilers, now Kings GM, Ken Holland. Really, really good stuff. I'm excited to share this interview with you. Plus, we are going to talk about the amazing new uniforms for the Ontario Reign, but we start with Darnell Nurse. Now, according to multiple reports, the Oilers defenseman is heading out of Edmonton. You will hear more in our interview what the Oilers are looking to do as far as getting rid of him because of his big-time contract, $9.25 million per season. Nurse also seems finally ready for a fresh start, as there have been rumors about him being traded for a while because of that big contract that he's not living up to. Very important that Nurse is finally saying he's ready to move on because he has a full no movement clause and he will have to approve any trade. Now, there are reports that the LA Kings are a place he would waive his no trade clause to join. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia have been reported as well. So we have some key questions to ask about the possibility of Darnell Nurse coming to LA. First is, why would the Kings be interested in trading for Darnell Nurse, and how likely is it to happen? Well, I think it's very possible that it could happen, and Kings GM Ken Holland is a big reason why. He is the one who signed Darnell Nurse to that 8-year, $74 million contract extension back in 2001. Holland believed Nurse would turn into a near elite type of top pairing defenseman, but instead Nurse is more of a serviceable second pairing defenseman. Now, remember at the end of his press conference, the end of your press conference for Ken Holland, he said he has no regrets in his NHL career as a GM. So I assume that means he does not regret signing Darnell Nurse to that contract, a contract that is clearly too much for a player of his caliber. But clearly, Ken Holland at one time thought very highly of Darnell Nurse. Does he still think highly of him is the question. Now, would Darnell Nurse upgrade the Kings' defense? Now, if the Kings continue to want 3 left-shot defensemen on the left side and 3 right-shot defensemen on the right side, Darnell Nurse is a left-shot defenseman. So if he were to come in, he'd be looking to replace, you would think, a Mikey Anderson, a Joel Edmundson, or a Brian Dumoulin. And would he be an upgrade in favor of any of those players? Well, let's look at some superficial numbers on all those guys. First off, Darnell Nurse is 31 years old. So he isn't young, he isn't over the hill, and he's very comparable to the other guys we are on this list. Mikey Anderson's 27, Joel Edmundson's 32, and Brian Dumoulin is 34. So Nurse is in that range. Darnell Nurse is 6'4" and 215 pounds, so he's a little bit bigger than Mikey Anderson, who's 6'1", 195, but very comparable to Joel Edmundson, who's 6'5", 220, and Brian Dumoulin, who's 6'4", 215. So there's no big advantage there as far as bringing in a much bigger player than you already have in those positions. Darnell Nurse played 82 games last season, so reliable for the most part as far as being in the lineup. He had 7 goals, 17 assists for 24 points. That isn't much more than Mikey Anderson, Joel Edmundson, or Brian Dumoulin. Anderson played in 80 games. He had 4 goals and 16 assists for 20 points. So Nurse had 4 more points than Mikey. Joel Edmundson played all 82 games like Nurse. He had 2 goals and 21 assists for 23 points. So Nurse only had 1 more point than Edmundson. And Brian Dumoulin played in all 82 games. He had 2 goals and 15 assists for 17 points. So a few more points than Brian Dumoulin did. But certainly Darnell Nurse's offensive numbers don't exactly blow away the competition. So if the Kings are looking for more offensive production for the blue line, which GM Ken Holland has said he is looking for, Darnell Nurse isn't someone that is probably going to give you a lot more production than what you already have. A few more goals, a few more points, but certainly nothing dramatically different than what the Kings are probably looking for. Darnell Nurse last year was a minus 12 in the plus minus category. He committed 104, or he's had 104 penalty minutes, and he dished out 137 hits. That is a plus minus that is not close to what the other guys had. Mikey Anderson was a plus 8. Joel Edmundson was a plus 14, and Brian Dumoulin a minus 1. Again, Darnell Nurse was a minus 12. The penalty minutes were a lot more. As a matter of fact, Darnell Nurse had more penalty minutes by himself than Mikey Anderson, Joel Edmundson, and Brian Dumoulin combined. 104 penalty minutes for Nurse. Mikey had 22, Edmundson had 25, and Dumoulin had 22 penalty minutes. Now, Darnell Nurse was more physical with his 137 hits. Mikey Anderson had 111. Joel Edmundson had 97, and Brian Dumoulin just 36. So a little bit more on the physical side, but also more penalty minutes for Darnell Nurse. Now, Nurse is a bit limited defensively. Again, a little bit more physical, takes more penalties. He did average 20 minutes and 59 seconds of ice time last season, so he can play some significant minutes. Does play on the penalty kill as well. His minutes were more per game than Mikey Anderson, but only by a few seconds. Joel Edmundson, he played about 2 more minutes than he did, and Brian Dumoulin about 3 more minutes. Now, if the Kings could get Darnell Nurse, he would probably be their second pairing D-man on the left side. So I assume you would move Joel Edmundson down to the third pairing and maybe ship Brian Dumoulin out. Or you could ship out Edmundson and you could keep Dumoulin on the third pairing. But again, I really don't see Darnell Nurse being a significant upgrade from Joel Edmundson. He is a little younger. Certainly he can't skate better than Joel Edmundson. But again, the point production wasn't much better at all. So you might ask, why not get the Oilers to, if we're going to take on a bad contract from them, maybe they'll take on a bad contract from us. Cody Ceci is the worst contract on the LA Kings. He's signed for the next 3 years at $4.5 million. Darnell Nurse is signed for the next 4 years, by the way. The problem, though, with that is you're swapping bad contracts, but obviously Ceci's contract isn't as bad in terms of dollars and length. And you'd also, if you're going to bring in a left shot defenseman in Nurse and you trade away a right shot defenseman in Cody Ceci, then you've got to either have somebody playing on their offside or you have to make a trade to replace a Cody Ceci on the right side. So doing that could be problematic as well. Again, Nurse is more mobile than guys like Edmundson and Dumoulin. And in Peter Laviolette's more offensive-minded system, that could be somewhat significant. But the big factor here, and we'll talk more about this in our interview coming up in just a minute with Nick Zararis, the salary for Darnell Nurse. How much of that salary is the Edmonton Oilers, or are the Edmonton Oilers looking to retain? Certainly, they don't want to retain much. They would like to retain none of it. But how would that work as far as making a trade? If they're going to ask a team to take on all of his salary, clearly they're going to have to sweeten up that pot. You remember when the Kings had to get rid of Cal Peterson's contract, they had to throw Sean Walker, now Stanley Cup winning Sean Walker, in that deal to make it enticing for the Flyers to take him. And the Flyers had cap space. They were rebuilding, so that's not a big deal. The Kings are not in that kind of a situation. So even if the Oilers were to throw in a draft pick or something along with Darnell Nurse, the Kings are not going to look on to take on all that contract. So again, Edmonton, how much would they be willing to retain of that contract? And what would they be willing to do for the Kings to maybe take a contract off of their books as well? Again, we'll talk more about that in our interview coming up in just a minute. For what it's worth, Darnell Nurse did wear an A on his sweater for the Oilers as an alternate captain. So I guess there is some leadership qualities there. But something else to keep in mind, let's not forget that Darnell Nurse had a very dirty, controversial play 2 seasons ago against the LA Kings' Quentin Byfield. It was late in the regular season. Nurse took Byfield down from behind in the crease. And then with Byfield face down on the ice, he cross-checked Quentin Byfield in the back of his head with the stick. A dirty player against a defenseless player, or dirty play against a defenseless player. The NHL suspended Nurse for the final game of the regular season, but then allowed him to play in the playoffs against the LA Kings. Very typical gutless move by the NHL to slap someone on the wrist for a dangerous play, because Quentin Byfield didn't get hurt. So that's usually what the NHL does. Unless you get hurt, they're willing to let players get away with things like that, which is ridiculous. But could that be a factor in the Kings not wanting to trade for Darnell Nurse? Probably not. Now, fans will certainly remember it, but Ken Holland wasn't the GM of the Kings when that incident took place. He wasn't even the GM of the Oilers. Remember, that was the year that he took a year off from working in the NHL, and was working for the NHL at the time. So I'm sure he's well aware of it, but I would be surprised if that was any kind of a factor in the Kings possibly trading for Darnell Nurse. All right, now coming up, we have an interview that you don't want to miss. Locked On Edmonton Oilers host Nick Zararis is going to join us and talk about Darnell Nurse possibly coming to LA, how he sees a trade like that. He'll address the rumors of Connor McDavid maybe leaving after this season, and could LA be a destination? And we'll get his thoughts on former Oilers GM, now Kings GM, Ken Holland, and the job that he has done as a general manager of both of these teams. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, staying organized, and focus on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having someone working hard for the same goal. Everyone working hard for the same goal. That's true in sports as well, just like it is in business. Kings GM Ken Holland had a plan to hire a new head coach, interviewed the candidates, took steps necessary to get the job done. In the end, found the best coach available for the team in Peter Laviolette. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try it for free today at odoo.com/locked on. That's odoo.com/locked on. odoo.com/locked on. And the biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting, from the opening whistle to the final kick. And now FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with Every Goal Pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals means more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. That's what I love about these tournaments. You can turn on a match between teams you normally don't follow, and suddenly one goal changes everything. The tension builds so quickly that you're invested before you even realize it. From the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are happy to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Edmonton Oilers. He is Nick Zararis, and he is going to discuss a couple of things that are maybe related with the LA Kings and the Oilers. Nick, thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Eddie.
Let's start with Oilers defenseman Darnell Nurse. There was a report that he is asked to be traded. I've also seen things that the Oilers were going to ask him to waive his no trade clause, and maybe he decided the old, you can't fire me, I quit. First and foremost, what is the reasoning behind the Oilers wanting to possibly move off from Darnell Nurse, or Darnell Nurse wanting to move away from the Oilers?
So 2 weeks ago now, Mark Spector wrote an article saying that in the coming days or weeks, the Oilers were going to sit down with Darnell Nurse and tell him, that come next summer, we are going to trade you. If you would like to be traded sooner, we are glad to accommodate that. If you want to stay for the 26-27 season, we were also willing to accommodate that. But by the middle of last week, which is the report you're talking about, we heard that Nurse had given the Oilers a list of teams he was willing to accept the trade to. We've kind of seen the inversion of the no trade list, where guys are now using it to leverage their way to a specific team as opposed to not ending up with a certain team. But for why the Oilers would want to get rid of him, it's the cap flexibility. At $9.25 million, he's one of the 10 highest paid defensemen in the league. He's used as the fourth or fifth defenseman on the Oilers. And as cap squeezed as they are between him, McDavid, Draisaitl, Evan Bouchard, that's $40 million on 4 players. You still have to fill out the entire rest of the team. Tristan Jarry comes in at just about $6 million. Really quickly, you're at almost half of your $105 million allotment on 5 guys. And if one of those guys is at best your 4th or 5th defenseman, that's just not practical from an economic standpoint.
So we've heard LA's on the list, maybe Pittsburgh. I've seen Philadelphia floated out there. Obviously, we don't know. But I guess it makes sense for LA in a sense that, he has a relationship with Ken Holland, who signed him to the current contract that he's playing under. Do you think that a trade to LA makes sense for the Oilers, and maybe what they would be looking for in any kind of return?
I think from a practicality standpoint, more than anything, it would have to be a reset as far as egos go. We know how all these hockey guys are. I do think there are probably some hard feelings there that Ken Holland was allowed to be the general manager on a lame duck contract. The team got to the Stanley Cup final and he left. That's really uncommon in our game today, where guys, whether it's a coach or a GM, go through that lame duck year without any clarity on their situation. I do think there is a world where a trade could make sense. I know the Kings are kind of in an in-between state right now where they're not really sure which direction they're going in. And someone like Nurse is going to be able to play 22, 23 minutes a night, be on your first penalty kill. He's going to give you agito while he does it, but the hockey men like him. He's got the size. He skates well. His traits are not the issue here. This is decision-making. This is coaching. That's what was really shocking, as a matter of fact, about that Spectre article from 2 weeks ago, was there were anonymous quotes in there attributed to people in the Oiler organization, really impugning Nurse as a hockey player, where it's not the traits, but we've changed defensive coaches several times throughout his tenure in Edmonton, and the results don't change. He makes the same mistakes. He takes the same gambles, and he refuses to adapt. And the Oilers, his unwillingness to adapt has effectively forced the Oilers to admit they don't really want to keep him anymore, in spite of the fact they clearly like the guy. They gave him the big contract. He wears a letter for the team. He plays an important role as far as the locker room goes, and we know the locker room management has been one of the subplots of the Oilers the last couple of years for certain things, especially the goalies, where guys like Skinner, Calvin Pickard were given a little bit more runway than you would otherwise think because the other guys on the team valued them as teammates. So I think it's definitely a world where you could make a Kings Oilers trade work. As far as return, I think if the Oilers got anything, they would be happy. I just think they want to retain as little money as possible. That's really the big question mark for them.
Yes, and along those lines, do you think they are willing to retain some? And I will ask you this, and you know this very well. The Oilers have had their issues in net. The Kings have too many goalies with their young prospects ready to be in the AHL now. And I think Darcy Kuemper is a guy they'd be looking to move. Now, he's a year removed from a Vezina Trophy finalist, but he also lost his starting job last year and didn't play in the playoffs. Do you think Darcy Kuemper would be attractive at all for the Oilers?
If you're asking me personally, yes. I've always thought Darcy Kuemper is particularly underrated. He's got really good playoff numbers for the duration of his career. Won the Cup in Colorado. As you mentioned, was a backstop on one of the better defensive teams in the league 2 years ago when he finished as a Vezina Trophy guy. I think the Oilers are really going to be creative as far as their goalie room goes. They have Tristan Jarry for 2 more years. Connor Ingram, who was their starter for the second half of the season, is an unrestricted free agent. I think if the Oilers could find a way where they're only retaining $2.25, $3 million, if they're retaining 25-30%, and they're getting a player back who's going to have some utility for them, I do think that's a trade I would like to entertain. The idea of a Kuemper Jarry pair is a lot more enticing to me than if they were to go the path of Tristan Jarry and they trade for whichever third goalie in another organization they like, whether that's Stephen Kosa of Detroit or Michael DiPietro of the Bruins. Neither of those guys has NHL experience, and this is a team that's expected to be a playoff team next year. You can't go into next year with the second goalie in a tandem because Jarry can't make 55, 60 starts, being a guy with no NHL experience. That's just not practical. So yes, I would be very interested in Darcy Kuemper for the Oilers. Does that set up issues for the following year? Yes, but in the short term for right now, that is the type of gamble they're going to need to take, because any team taking on Darnell Nurse is going to have to send money back to offset it. $9.25 million is a really high price point in today's game.
Obviously, Ken Holland is a Hall of Famer, and what he did in Detroit was, exemplary. He is now on his third team. Edmonton and now LA. I think so far in LA, it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. I know the Cody Ceci contract, the Brian Dumoulin signing certainly has not fared well here so far. Artemi Panarin comes in. That was a great trade for him to get. How much of that was Holland, though, and how much was that just Panarin wanted to come to LA for whatever reason? But it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. I was wondering, how was his time in Edmonton, in your opinion, and what do you think of him as a GM?
I think it's really uneven. The hits, Zach Hyman becoming a 50-goal guy, that's as good a gamble as you're going to see, where he was the 7th or 8th forward in Toronto. He bet on himself. He probably took a little bit less money than he could have got if he went somewhere else. And he's been one of the best goal scorers in the league since he got there. The Matthias Ekholm trade looms large. One of the reasons Evan Bouchard has emerged as one of the better defensemen in the league is because he has a defensive partner in Ekholm, who is one of the better defensive defenders in the league. And I don't think the Oilers would have been able to have the run they have over the last couple of years if Bouchard doesn't get to that next level. And that's really the irony of it, because if you told Ken Holland, well, give Bouchard 2 years and he'll be better than Darnell Nurse, they probably don't sign Darnell Nurse. That's really the issue here. If Bouchard doesn't break out, Darnell Nurse stays on the first power play. He gets more time with McDavid, and the counting stats are a little more appetizing. If he's a 50-point defenseman, it's a little more palatable that he makes $9 million. But being that he's on the second pair, he's not on the first power play, his counting stats are a little tricky. The big knock on Ken Holland is the young guys. The Oilers did not turn around any of their draft picks from 2019 on into players. Even Broberg and Holloway, 2 guys who look like pretty good players for the Blues now, Ken Holland didn't take them particularly seriously as far as getting them under contract. Part of the reason they were susceptible or willing to take offer sheets, they didn't feel they were prioritized. I think Ken Holland did a better job than what Peter Chiarelli did. Peter Chiarelli's solution was just throw money at the problem, sign players, and we'll figure it out later. But I think the Oilers have really boxed themselves into a corner because each of the GMs has operated under the idea, well, we have McDavid, we need to be good right now. And McDavid's 30 in February of next year. We're more than 12 years into Connor McDavid as an NHL player. You could make an argument the best hockey he's played might be behind him at this point, and they have yet to really figure out how to build the team around him. And he's been willing to take less money the year that just passed, and this upcoming season he's getting only 12.5 when he easily could have reset the market. I would venture to say, and it's a sad state of affairs, Ken Holland is probably the best Oilers general manager of the 21st century, but that's not a very high bar. He put the team together that got them to that cup final in 24. The majority of the team that went in 25 was guys he assembled, but it's not a very high bar. A lot of really bad draft picks over the years, a lot of bad trades, a lot of bad free agents. Getting out of the woods was important, but Ken Holland didn't get them over the edge. If they had won in 24 or even won in 25, or they looked to have a bit of a brighter future, you could make an argument a little bit better, like where he ranks in comparison to other teams. But for the Oilers, yeah, Ken Holland is probably the Oilers' best GM this century so far.
Final one for you, and you mentioned Connor McDavid. I have to ask because I get messages on social media, or we have a feedback show. We get emails from fans, and they will bring up Connor McDavid possibly coming to LA. I don't know if lightning would strike twice because, of course, once upon a time Wayne Gretzky came from the Oilers to the Kings, but Connor McDavid, obviously, his contract is up after this coming or 2 years left on his contract is what I'm trying to say. I'm sure that was obviously done for a reason. So as it stands right now, what do you think the scenario is that would see Connor McDavid want to go elsewhere after this year?
I think if it implodes, I think if the goaltending is bottom 5 again, the defense was leaky last year, and if Nurse leaves, they're going to need to replace top 4 minutes, first penalty kill minutes, and they don't have somebody in-house who can do that right now. I don't think Jake Wallman is that type of guy. I think there is a world where the Oilers miss the playoffs this upcoming season, especially if the goaltending struggles to the same degree. And at that point, he'll be 31 the following February. Draisaitl's here for in perpetuity. He's got 6 more years left on that deal. Bouchard's got 3. If you're McDavid, you want to leverage your way somewhere else. It depends what he wants. He's hard to get a read on. He always says the right things. He's pretty buttoned up about his messaging, his public persona. Bob Stauffer, who works for the Oilers, who does a lot of their media stuff, said he expects McDavid to stay. I think he'll stay, but I do think there is a world where if the team is actively bad next year and they miss the playoffs, I could entertain a world where he would want to get moved, where he would want to go somewhere with a better chance to win at 31, especially.
All right. He is Nick Zararis. He is the host of Locked On Edmonton Oilers. Nick, always appreciate it. Great stuff. And congratulations to your New York Knicks on the NBA title there.
Thank you, Eddie. It was a late night last night, but I'm very glad I was able to do this today.
Well, yeah, thanks for making some time and enjoy that. I'm sure it's an amazing time right now, but thank you. If you've got a sweet tooth, you know how tough it can be to find that perfect treat without the sugar. And if you like 5-Hour Energy cotton candy, you have got to try Fruity Rainbow 5-Hour Energy. Tell me that doesn't sound good. Fruity Rainbow 5-Hour Energy shots treat your taste buds to an explosion of fruity flavor and that big, important caffeine kick as well. It's the easy way to justify that sweet craving while helping you on the go. It's a zero sugar treat that is sweet tooth approved, and it's super convenient. It's just a little bottle that you can put in your pocket, your backpack, your glove box, your purse. It's there for you on the go whenever you need it and gives you that all-important pick-me-up. It's become my go-to when I want something sweet without going overboard. So get candy-flavored chaos with Fruity Rainbow 5-Hour Energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Get your daily LA Kings fix completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to the Kings without the interruptions. Click on the link in the show notes or go to lockedonlakings.supercast.com to claim your free trial. So a little bit out of the blue, the Ontario Reign, the Kings AHL affiliate, has decided to rebrand, new logo, new colors, and also a new uniform. They are no longer basically just a clone of the LA Kings black and white uniforms. The Reign are going to purple and gold, or as I believe they're calling it, rain blue and inland gold. If you haven't seen it, I do have the pictures here of the new jerseys. And if you're listening on the podcast, I will describe them for you because you can't see it. The first jersey is the home white jersey. They have a new crown logo in the middle. It's not exactly like the old Kings throwback crown or the Kings new third jersey crown, but it's a nice looking crown. It's very reminiscent of the Kings old school crown. It's purple and gold. You have the purple stripes on the sleeve and at the bottom of the jersey, and on the top and bottom of each of those purple stripes is a gold stripe. And if you have watched or listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know I am a big fan of the old Kings uniforms. Love the purple and gold. I would love for them to go back to that color scheme. Don't know if they're going to do it anytime soon, but this certainly would be, I would think, some kind of an indication that maybe they're considering that at some point. On the shoulder of the jersey, it is black, and it does have the LA Kings logo patch on each of the left and the right shoulder. You know, if you've listened or watched this show, I'm a huge hockey jersey nerd. I collect these jerseys. I've already ordered my white new Ontario Reign jersey. I ordered the white one because, well, number one, I'm also a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I have a bunch of black jerseys of the Kings and the Steelers. So, wanted to get something a little different. And I do think that the purple and the gold does pop a little bit more on the white jersey. But the black jersey is very cool as well, and I am pretty sure I'll be ordering that soon. Now, the Kings are also supposed to have a new third jersey this year. The hometown crossover, I believe is what they're calling it. And it's supposed to be a purple jersey, and I've just said I love purple, so I'll have to save my money for that one as well. But as for the black jersey for the Ontario Reign, obviously it's a black jersey, but has the purple and gold stripe around the sleeves and the bottom of the jersey as well, just like the white jersey does. And also there is a gold stripe surrounding the top and the bottom of the purple jersey as well, with the Kings logo on the shoulder of the jersey, just like the white home one. So I think both these jerseys are very sharp. I've always said, if the Kings decide to stick with the white and the black kind of primary color jersey, at least do what we're seeing here with these new Ontario Reign jerseys and have the colors purple and gold be a part of it. Now, I've heard some people say they really like the black ones. I've heard some people say they really like the white ones. I like them both. But like I said, if the Kings decide that they always want to have the black and the white, okay, but do incorporate some of the purple and gold in it. I think these new jerseys do that very, very well. And I've always said I've always been a huge sucker for the crown logo. It is a little reminiscent, if you're a junior hockey fan, of the Edmonton Oil Kings, which is a junior team in the Western Hockey League. Kind of looks a little bit like that. Not the colors, but the crown does kind of look a little bit like that. But I'm a big fan of these new jerseys and excited to see it. And maybe this is a move slowly in the direction of the LA Kings one day going to something similar to what we're seeing here with the new Ontario Reign logo and jerseys. Big fan of it. Big fan of it. So we're still waiting for any kind of contract news for the LA Kings. Obviously, there are some UFAs that the Kings are deciding on if they want to re-sign or not. You've got Scott Lawton primarily amongst those players, to a lesser extent, Jeff Malott, Andrei Kuzmenko, and Jacob Moverara. But certainly Scott Lawton is the big name on that list, and we shall see about those guys. The Kings have locked up some unrestricted free agents to be in terms of their organization. We talked about Otto Jemsen, who plays for the Ontario Reign. They re-signed him to a one-year deal within the last couple of weeks, and they also announced that they have signed forward Martin Kromiak to a one-year deal worth $824,000. He's a 23-year-old winger, led the Reign in points with 56 and goals with 28 this past season, which was a little bit of a breakout season for him. Kromiak setting new career highs. He had 10 more goals than his previous career high and 17 more points. I don't know that I would consider Martin Kromiak to be a high-level prospect for the LA Kings, but look, he's coming off a solid season, his best season as a pro. Maybe he can build on those numbers this coming season as well. And look, the Kings have a new head coach in Peter Laviolette. They're going to play a new style. Maybe that style translates into a better opportunity for a player like Martin Kromiak to maybe get a shot at the NHL, which he has yet to experience at this point in his career. But he will be battling guys like Jared Wright, who has gotten a taste of the NHL, Andre Lee, who also has gotten a taste of the NHL as well. So they're a bit ahead of the game when it comes to Martin Kromiak. But wingers, Wright with the speed, Lee with the physical play, that probably do have a bit of a leg up on Martin Kromiak. But I would say a very big training camp for Kromiak. Hopefully he can, again, build off of this season he had last year and at least put himself in the discussion to maybe have an opportunity to play on the wing. Look, if the Kings can't go out and get a top six center, they're going to move Alex Laferriere to center, and that opens up a spot for somebody on a wing potentially. So you never know what the opportunity is going to be. You know, a couple of years ago, people like me did not see Alex Laferriere getting an opportunity, but there was an injury. He got his chance, and he's never left the LA Kings since. So you never know how things can work out. Come into camp in great shape, be ready and motivated to go, and make the most of your opportunity if it does come up. So Martin Kromiak will be in the Kings organization for another season. All right, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On LA Kings so you get all the latest episodes. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club's built for you. Get Locked On LA Kings ad-free plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonlakings.supercast.com for more information. For you everydayers, those that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on our next show, a little bit of a special show. Our 10-year anniversary as a network is coming up on Tuesday. And so with that in mind, we'll be doing a little bit of a celebration and a promotion of that. And we'll have a special top 10 list involving the LA Kings in recognition of 10 years of the Locked On Network. Also have a few other things we'll talk about as well. And of course, always want to promote at the end of the week. We will have our fan feedback show as well. So if you want to get an email in for that, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com. Did want to remind you the NHL draft is ever getting closer. We are going to have a special show this week with our Locked On NHL prospects hosts to give us some insight into that. We'll be doing some more prospect features as well. So lots going on here as this offseason is just getting going for the LA Kings and the rest of the NHL. If you want to stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, we are at Locked on LA Kings. And if you want more of me, you could check out the Puck Podcast. It's a weekly NHL review show. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Puck Podcast. We're in our 20th year of doing this show, and that is a long time. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked on LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.